Many people first got to know Robert Basel through a myriad of intimidating rumors. Rob got an offer from Harvard, but he rejected it. At high school senior year, Rob passed a new law in Nevada. Rob doesn't have to follow school attendance. He makes his own schedule. Rob is a genius. He's basically a different species of human. Feeling determined to look under all these layers of mysterious veil, I had a deep conversation with this charismatic super nerd, Robert Basel. A freshman majored in biology engineering at Duke University, one of the world's leading institutes for this science field. Rob's student career is certainly special, but many of his motivations and actions are also very doable for us, such as that he applied for more than 20 scholarships to support college tuition in order to ease the financial burden for his single parent, such as between paying high tuition for Harvard and going to Duke for free. He chose affordability over the top luxury brand. Such as he worked on the same social charity cause for more than 10 years. He chose a volunteer project out of his own heart instead of building a strategic resume. Such as not really passing a law. Instead, he wrote and spoke as a student representative to initiate a bill, with the hope to provide more support to children who lost parents the same way as he did. His social efforts are much more testing than glorious, and it will take a lot of painful efforts to see any change at a systematic level in the state of Nevada. What has shaken my heart and mind about Rob is how his genuine charisma speaks care and understanding for others, how he sees light during challenges and is generous to share, how the pursuit of greatness is still possible, even in this traumatized society of ours. How did you make that? Because people don't pass, don't say no to Harvard for another school. So can you give me a simplified version of your rationale?
I was the recipient of the Robertson Scholarship, which is a all expenses paid to Duke, so tuition, room and board, food, everything. I won't pay a cent for college. In general, something I tell all of my younger friends is follow the money.
So I'm gonna start with the childhood. When did you know that you were smart?
I will say, as far as I can remember, my mom and dad had always talked to me saying, look, clearly you think about things differently. Is up until really middle and high school, I was a terrible student where I never put time into anything. I didn't try, to the point where I was almost pulled out of school. If I remember correctly, up until 7th grade, I had all C's and B's, and it was starting my 7th and 8th grade year that I got my first A's. In work of, okay, well, is it okay for me to put less time into this assignment because I know it's only worth 5% of my final grade? Or should I not go to school today? That way I can make sure I study and prepare for this test the next day.
In terms of self-care, or downtime, how do you weigh that and how do you actually do that? Right.
I had a rule that every Saturday I am not allowed to do work. You can do extra work on Friday, you can do extra work on Sunday. But a hobby at this point is I absolutely love to cook. I've been making most of my own meals since I was in middle school.
Ask you a question about your mama.
Right. So the absolute biggest thing that she said, especially back to that earlier point of when she said you need to try harder, she never once said, why didn't you get a better grade on this? It's something that needs to be balanced and would also be harder in my later years in high school was I have always been my own biggest critic.
But the tricky thing is to balance that self-demand with self-compassion.
Right. Something that I think really helped me is I, through and through, am a nerd and absolutely love school.
And your most famous story around the Meadows community is that Rob passed a law.
So, for a bit of context, when I was 5 years old, my dad died from a heart attack, and because of that, I was put into different types of therapy. But that's where the first idea came, which was, why don't I write a book? So that's what I ended up doing. I took that curriculum and I wrote a mental health workbook.
Yeah. So please share us some mistakes that you want us to know better.
The biggest overall mistake I made in high school was not reaching out to people as soon as I should have.
Yeah. The certainty. The stress from an uncertainty is more than the stress of the work itself. Yeah. On a daily basis, people are still feel awkward to be vulnerable at certain moments. So sometimes if you say, I know you probably feel something, it could come across as assuming, right? People are like, don't finish my sentence for me, right? It could have that effect.
Whenever someone tells me, well, I'm too busy, I don't have enough I have too much going on, I can't think about my mental health, my response, without trying to sound too mean, is always, I don't believe you.
Wow, that is actually incredibly wise. But then you're like 18. Wow, no pressure. Okay, I am not intimidated.
And the only reason I created a nonprofit was because I saw a larger need and wanted to scale what work I was doing with kids in Nevada. And honestly, I only created a nonprofit, that way I could get donations and give people a tax write-off, to help use as negotiating power, both in terms of when I would reach out for grants. It opened up new grants.
Duke and Harvard, then let's do that. So can you give me a simplified version of your rationale?
Yep, so that no level of prestige, even Harvard, no level of prestige is worth a $400,000 in debt when you're out of college.